Hello from Praxis Recruitment. I'm Christina Stewart, and today I want to talk to job seekers about references. If you are looking for work, you need to have some references ready. So my very first piece of advice for you in terms of references is be prepared. Think in advance of who you might want to use as your references. As you're embarking on your job search, you want to get to the point where a hiring officer or a recruiter is actually checking your references. So be ready with some names and numbers of some folks that you can use to verify the information that you're giving. And that's exactly what a reference is. From a recruitment or hiring officer's standpoint, they want to make sure that the information that you're giving them in the interview actually matches what went on in your work experience. And so the point of a reference is really just to vet what you've said. So you want to make sure, number one, that the people that you're giving the names of actually know you. I did a reference a couple weeks ago with someone, and they could barely remember the candidate that I was talking about. That's not very helpful in terms of me understanding and getting some confidence in this person's ability to follow through on what they actually told me. So number one, regardless of who you are providing names of, make sure that they worked closely with you and that they can speak to your skills and experience and abilities and demeanor within the work environment. The other thing that I want to talk about is a 360-degree review process in referencing. And so what I might want to do is review not only people that you reported to, but people that you worked with, as well as people who reported to you. And so that's a 360-degree view of your past work experience. So having people that you reported to, as well as peers and direct reports that can speak to your abilities and your experience in a particular place is actually a great idea. Now, the other question that I want to address that happens all the time is that you might be working somewhere and you don't want to give a reference for your current position. Well, first of all, we understand. I completely understand you don't want to give away that you're actually looking for work until you have an offer in hand. So there's a couple ways to get around that. Number one, if there is somebody outside of the organization that you can provide as a reference, is actually not a bad idea. So what I'm thinking is maybe a consultant, maybe you work with a lawyer really closely, something like that. I would be happy to connect with that outside person. And you could tell them that you're looking, but you don't want your current employer to know, and they would, of course, keep that confidential. And then the other avenue around this is that you would be happy to provide a reference once you have an offer. And so we call that contingent. So we do that all the time where we extend an offer to a candidate. We say, yes, we want you to come and work here. I might check references in a couple other places, but the offer is contingent upon a positive reference from your current workplace. And so you would feel comfortable then at that point, moving on in the process, going through the offer stage and negotiation, nailing it down with the contract, and then once everything is signed, I would reach out and connect with a supervisor in the business that you've just given notice to, right? And so that's one way of working around it. Now, the other thing that I wanted to make sure is that you let those people know some context and that you contact them. So whoever your references are, when it gets to that stage where I'm going to call them for a candidate, I let the candidate know, okay, I'm doing this now, I'm calling. So what you should be doing is letting your references know that I'm going to be reaching out. Trying to hunt down references is probably one of the most difficult parts of this job. And so if you can give them a heads up that I'm reaching out and to expect me reaching out, to expect my email or my phone call, that can sort of cut down on the lag time and the time that it takes for me to actually secure those references. But while you're at it, you probably want to let your reference know some context around the position. You want to make sure that you're saying, well, I've applied for a management role in marketing, or, this is the association or this is the organization, and give them a little bit of context around it. So that way, when they are answering questions, they can use an appropriate lens with which to answer. Also on that note, when you send me your list of references, please provide me with context as well. So what's their name? How do you know them? What's your relationship? Oh, I worked with them at, such and such a business. I did report to them, or they reported to me, or this was a peer that I worked with at such and such a place. So having that context actually helps on my side as well. And then further to that, when you give me their information, yes, I want their phone number because I want to talk to them. But as I just mentioned, coordinating those reference calls can be pretty tricky. So if you can give me their email address as well, then I can reach out softly with an email and coordinate a time that works for both of us. So that cuts down on the, calling somebody up out of the blue and saying, well, have you got 15 minutes right now to speak to me about this person? So really, really helpful. Name, context, phone number, and email address. Okay. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about today is negative references. What if you know that someone is going to give you a negative reference? What if I insist I need to talk to somebody at such and such a company that you worked with, and you know that that person is probably not going to give you the best reference? Don't give me any surprises. So it happens. Sometimes people just don't mesh, or the circumstances didn't work, or maybe you were in a role that just wasn't the right role for you. You're a fantastic person and they still like you, but it just wasn't a good fit. Doesn't matter. Regardless, for whatever reason, just let me know. So if I say, well, I need this reference, then what, and it's going to be negative, just pick up the phone, give me a call, and let's walk through it. What you'll tell me is exactly what I just said. You'll give me some idea as to why it might be a negative reference. And then that way, as I'm answering or asking the questions and listening to the answers, I can use it again through the lens of verifying what you've already told me. So if you've said, listen, I took on this role, it was over my head at the time, I was not prepared for it, I didn't have the right education skills and experience, I have learned those now, but back then I didn't, and so they're probably going to tell you that I was over my head. When I get on the phone with that person and they say, well, they were over their head, then I know that it matches, and that actually helps to allow me to trust you and to feel like it might be a good fit for you. So those are some tips and some tricks for references. Make sure in the comments, give me some other ones that you have that might work for you. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check back next time. Thanks for listening. Take care.